I've been kicked out of the house. Can you let me stay just for tonight? What? You were kicked out? Grandpa, come live with us. Really? Are you sure? My father-in-law had been treated terribly by his son and daughter-in-law and was finally kicked out of their house. We decided to have him live with us in our family-run sushi restaurant. I'm Emma, 40 years old, and my husband Ethan is 2 years older. We were high school sweethearts but separated when we started working. I thought it was over between us, but Ethan returned to our hometown a few years later and proposed, saying he wanted to be with me forever. We got married, and things have been going pretty well. Our daughter Lily is in the 3rd grade, and we're a close-knit family of 3. We run a sushi restaurant together, Ethan's lifelong dream. However, it's not doing as well as we'd like, and we're trying to figure out how to make it more successful. It's pretty good, and we do have customers, but there's nothing extraordinary about it. We'd like to try advertising on trendy social media, but we just don't have the time right now. Today we are visiting Ethan's brother and sister-in-law. To be honest, I've never really liked them. Even now, they are acting aloof. When Ethan offered them some sushi we brought as a gift, his brother reacted harshly. Brother, I've included some new ingredients. Try it and let me know what you think. Hey, don't bring that stuff here. I only eat sushi from high-end restaurants. Well, you don't have to be so mean. Father-in-law can eat it. Honestly, what a way for a couple to talk. Since my mother-in-law passed away, father-in-law has been living with them, so we visit occasionally to see him. I've noticed that they treat him worse and worse each time. Ethan, Emma, thank you. I'll enjoy it later. I'll make some coffee now, father-in-law said, who had been playing with our daughter, coming over. Wait, father-in-law, that's expensive coffee for guests. Don't use it on family. Dad, don't touch anything. Mia told you not to go into the kitchen. But you two aren't even offering coffee when your younger brother's family has come over. We were just about to do it. Oh, be quiet. It's annoying enough having you here every day. We don't need coffee. Instead, please try the sushi. I'd love to hear what you think with your refined tastes. I intervened, trying to be as gentle as possible. Emma, it must be tough running a sushi restaurant with a brother like this. You need to brush up or you'll never be successful. Brush? No use using English words. A failing sushi restaurant must be drowning in debt and on the brink of bankruptcy, his sister-in-law continued. We do have debt, but we are paying it off little by little, my husband snapped back. Ignoring my husband, she continued to me, you should have married an elite banker like me. It's sad how different the 2 brothers turned out. Exactly. If you followed my lead, you'd have a better life. A sushi restaurant from a dream since you were fishing with that. She trailed off. Both of you, stop it. Why do you keep saying such awful things? Father-in-law spoke up unusually sternly. It seemed that my brother-in-law and his wife couldn't forgive father-in-law for defending us. I never thought they would go so far. It happened that night. The doorbell rang just after 10 p.m. when our daughter was asleep. Who could it be at this hour? I'll get it, my husband said as he went to the door. Dad, what's going on? I rushed over when I heard his surprised voice. Oh, I'm sorry for coming at this hour. I've been kicked out of the house. I hate to ask so suddenly, but could you let me stay just for tonight? What? You were kicked out? He told us that after we left my brother-in-law's house, this had happened. Hey, Dad, what was that earlier? Defending Ethan and them. Well, you two were saying such terrible things. You know we are only taking care of you because we have to, right? It's a nuisance. We've been looking after you because you helped with the down payment for this condo. But isn't it enough? Yeah, we've let you live comfortably. You two felt that way. I offered to cook and clean, but you told me not to do anything. But we don't want you touching the kitchen or anything. Let's just call it quits, shall we? Why don't you go live with your beloved younger son? Yeah. We were outraged when we heard this. What? Is that unbelievable? I've been concerned about my brother and sister-in-law's attitude, but this is the worst. I felt the same way. I can't forgive them anymore. Anyway, it's late, and we have to get up early tomorrow, so let's go to bed. Father-in-law, please warm up in the shower. I'll prepare the bed in the meantime. Thank you, Emma. I'm sorry. The next morning, our daughter was surprised to see her grandfather. Grandpa, what are you doing here? Good morning, Lily. Sorry for coming so suddenly. Why, I'm happy. Let's play when I get back from school. She's been fond of her grandfather since she was a baby, and they've always been close. Mom, did something happen to Grandpa at that house? Oh well, a little. A 9-year-old girl is sharp and understands many things. He's always bullied at that house, and it's sad. Can't you live with us? What? Grandpa, come live with us. That night, our family unanimously decided to have father-in-law live with us. We had been worried about my brother-in-law and his wife looking down on father-in-law. But we couldn't forgive such terrible treatment. We had considered living with father-in-law before, but were concerned about what the family would say and couldn't bring it up. However, my husband was delighted and thanked me. We were most concerned about what our daughter would think, but she was the one who brought it up. So we were surprised. With that settled, it was time to act. My husband called his brother to report, but instead of apologizing, both my brother-in-law and his wife were thrilled. And so father-in-law became a member of our family. A few days later, father-in-law said he wanted to work at the sushi restaurant. It could be in lieu of rent. Don't worry about that. I've always loved cooking, and I actually worked at a sushi restaurant when I was young. Really? Before Ethan was born. And so father-in-law began to help out in the back of the sushi restaurant. Ethan, can I talk to you for a second? I think this fish might be better if we use kombucha. Huh? Which one? Also, could you listen to me for a moment? There are a few things I'm concerned about. Perhaps because they were father and son, father-in-law was sharing his thoughts with my husband one after another. His advice seemed spot on, and my husband agreed to change the preparation method for some of the sushi. Gradually, the number of customers began to increase. Online reviews increased, the taste improved, and the restaurant looked cleaner, receiving high praise. Sales also steadily grew. Thanks to father-in-law, our sushi restaurant was able to change for the better. Father-in-law wasn't always at the restaurant, so I felt relieved that my daughter's time alone decreased, and the two seemed to enjoy eating and reading together. But about 6 months later, an incident occurred. My brother-in-law and his wife barged in. Dad! Noah and Mia too. What's going on? We have come to take Dad back. We were so surprised when you really left, even though we were just joking. Yeah, so let's go back quickly. What? What are this couple talking about? My husband and I exchanged glances. Noah, a joke? Besides, I'm working at this sushi restaurant, so I can't go back there. That's it. Sales have increased since Dad came here. Now it's a popular restaurant that has a talent for management. Management talent? That's not it. So I'm thinking of starting a sushi restaurant too. I've quit the bank, and the store will open next week. Come back and help me. Wait a minute. You kicked father-in-law out and never contacted him. And now you want him back. That's too convenient. Yeah, brother, don't be selfish. What? You're going against me? I can pull strings to make sure this small shop doesn't get a loan from the bank. What? Is that a threat? Anyway, I could have managed better from the start. You might be doing well now, but you'll probably go downhill soon. What did you say? Calm down, Emma. Father-in-law admonished me when I raised my voice. All right, I'll go back, he said. Father-in-law? Dad. Good, our luxury condominium is better, right? Let's go, my brother-in-law snorted at us. Father-in-law looked into our eyes, nodded once, and left. They came to take Grandpa back. That's weird. They'll bully him again for sure. Our daughter, who had come home and learned what happened, was furious. She was right. After all the terrible treatment, it was unbelievable that they would demand him back now that our shop was doing well. But we endured it, thinking that if father-in-law had decided, we had to accept it. However, a month later, father-in-law appeared before us again. I'm back. Father-in-law, what happened? I got kicked out again. What? It's okay. I expected this. I knew it would happen. My husband and I listened to father-in-law's story about what he had been doing at my brother-in-law's place. It was outrageous. So father-in-law began living with us again, and our daughter was overjoyed. Of course, he also returned to work at the sushi restaurant. Even after father-in-law left, we faithfully practiced his teachings, and sales didn't drop, but it was undoubtedly tough with fewer hands. However, we managed to run the shop efficiently again, and thanks to father-in-law, we could procure fresh and rare fish, and the number of customers kept increasing. Then my brother-in-law and his wife, who had heard about our success, barged in again. They had always manipulated father-in-law for their convenience and looked down on people. I couldn't forgive them anymore. What's going on here? No, what's the matter? What do you mean, what's the matter? Our shop's customers are decreasing while there's a line here. That's because Ethan's sushi is delicious and Emma's service is good, isn't it? We're making it just as you taught us in our shop. Did you teach us a fake recipe? I didn't teach you anything fake. Then why is there such a difference? First of all, who's making the sushi? A friend I hired. We plan to succeed in a high-end sushi restaurant together. You're not telling me that person is an amateur, are you? No way, he has a chef's license. Where did he train, and for how many years? Huh? Training? Are you underestimating sushi chefs? Just having a chef's license doesn't mean you can serve sushi to others. But with that recipe, even this guy wasn't doing well until he was taught by Dad. And then he prospered. What are you talking about, brother? I trained for years to open a sushi restaurant. Even I had to study, prepare, and redo things after opening. I couldn't just serve new sushi right away. Also, you're advertising your shop as a high-end restaurant, right? I saw your website. Even if you could serve the same taste and sushi as us, no one would come if you charged double the price. Why? Even if they come once, if it's expensive and tastes amateur, they won't come again. Isn't that obvious? Hey, don't act so high and mighty. I'm more professional in management. Enough. What? Father-in-law shouted, you may have worked in a bank and know about management, but that's not enough to run a restaurant. For sushi, you need knowledge about fish, how to cut it, how to preserve freshness, and it takes years of training to make sushi. Ethan has spent years learning. But that's why I asked you to write down everything about cutting and shaping with your guidance. My brother-in-law insisted. I did write everything down. I was even planning to guide you if you were serious, but you told me to leave because I was in the way. There's no way someone who was never trained can do it just by looking at a paper, father-in-law replied firmly. Oh, then my sister-in-law chimed in, guidance? Your brother only managed because he trained himself. But father-in-law is just an amateur fish lover acting all high and mighty. Do you have that condescending attitude towards customers too? Huh, I may be an amateur now, but when I was young, before I became a salaryman, I worked at a sushi restaurant, at Sushi Jan no less. That super famous place, even the branches run by disciples who have branched off are now impossible to book at. The master chef of that main shop is now quite a celebrity, which we used to learn together. If that's true, if you worked at such a successful sushi restaurant, there's no way you would have changed jobs to become a salaryman, my sister-in-law retorted. Normally that might be the case, but your mother was frail. Raising a child while working as a sushi chef from early morning to midnight was impossible. When you were born, I changed jobs and became a regular salaryman. No, it's a lie. It's not a lie. You can even check with Sushi January. What? Indeed, the sushi restaurant where father-in-law had worked when he was young had become so famous that no one didn't know about it. Thanks to father-in-law's personality, which had maintained relationships with his old colleagues and mentors, our family was blessed with good things like getting help with fish procurement at the market and learning about rare fish. My husband and I were also surprised that father-in-law's advice was so appropriate. If that's the case, I'll fire the guy I hired. Now I should hire a sushi chef, right? Then Dad and I will make an even more prosperous shop than this one. My brother-in-law, who quickly changed his tune, was firmly told by father-in-law. I'll make it clear. I have no intention of ever going back to your place. What? Why? It's suffocating there with restrictions on what I can touch and do. Living with Ethan and the others, I realized I was stifled. I've been complained about all the time, kicked out, and then called back for your convenience. We won't kick you out anymore, father-in-law's sister-in-law said with a forced smile. Even though you don't want to live together at all, huh? My sister-in-law froze with a pasted-on smile. You just want to call me back because you think it will make money, right? My sister-in-law seemed at a loss for words as father-in-law had hit the nail on the head. As I said earlier, having a manual alone won't do. You need to take time to hone your skills and most importantly, sincerity. You two are utterly lacking in that. But Dad, I apologize for everything so far. My brother-in-law tried to cozy up to father-in-law, trying to smooth things over with mere words. They were indeed a like-minded couple. Brother, it's time to start preparing for the evening business, so please leave. Please take your leave, my husband and I said in succession. You bastards, getting all cocky. I was an elite banker. I'll make sure you don't get any loans from now on. At that moment, the shop's door opened with a clatter. I'm home. Welcome back. Wait, Lily. I was surprised to see my daughter, who usually comes home through the back to our house, appear at the shop's entrance. Was that a threat just now? My daughter looked straight at my brother-in-law and his wife. You came to the shop before and yelled and said terrible things, and before that you bullied Grandpa at home all the time. What? What are you talking about, you cheeky girl? Just like a low-level couple's daughter. Mama, Papa. My friend Hannah's dad is a police officer, so I'll consult with him. Unexpected words came out, and the three of us were surprised. What? My brother-in-law and his wife turned pale. Hannah's dad is a very important person in the police. What? Let's go. We are leaving, brother. It was my innocent daughter's voice that was the last straw. My brother-in-law and his wife scrambled and ran out. Welcome back, Lily. Wow, that was a surprise. Thank you for helping us. Father-in-law looked at our daughter with surprise and tenderness. Sure that Hannah's dad is a police officer. Whether he is important or not, I don't know. I was left speechless by our daughter's nonchalant response. My husband, father-in-law, and I looked at each other and then burst into laughter. After that, my brother-in-law's shop closed down within 6 months. He had said that he quit his job and started the shop with determination, but the reality was slightly different. He had blamed his own mistake on a subordinate, and when it was discovered, he was demoted. Unhappy with the demotion, he quit the bank in a fit of anger. So even when the shop's management didn't go well, there was no one to help him, and he ended up with a massive debt. With that piling up, there was no way that couple could succeed, and they are now embroiled in a messy divorce drama. My brother-in-law seems to be job hunting, but given the way he quit, re-employment in the financial industry is tough. He has no goodwill, so there is no one to help him. On the other hand, our sushi shop has been thriving with a steady increase in customers, and we've paid off all the remaining debt. We've been featured in town magazines and on TV, and more people are sharing about us on social media, so we are busy every day. Of course, father-in-law is also helping out in the shop. I never thought I'd have such a fulfilling life at this age. Thank you so much. On our day off, as we were all eating cake, father-in-law said this with gratitude. We are the ones who should be thanking you. That's right, not just the shop, but even at home, we feel at ease and are helped because father-in-law is here. Thank you for loving Lily as well. Grandpa, let's play Othello. I won't lose today. Our daughter, who finished her cake first, called father-in-law from the living room. There will surely be more challenges ahead. The shop may face difficulties, and living together, we may get on each other's nerves at times. Life is long with its ups and downs. At such times, we'll look at each other and talk it out. If we share what we're all thinking, we'll surely overcome anything. Watching the smiles of our daughter and father-in-law, my husband and I smiled at each other. Get over here now and pick up the old hag we kicked out of our house. We want nothing to do with her. Jackson's voice was cold over the phone. About a month after my father's funeral, I received this unexpected call from my brother. He had kicked our mother out of the house and demanded that I take care of her from now on. I was stunned, unable to comprehend the situation immediately. You're joking, right? You didn't actually kick Mom out of the house. Come see for yourself. Oh, and I let her take Dad's memorial tablet. Why would you do something so cruel? I have no use for Mom now that we can't get Dad's inheritance. She's just a poor burden, isn't she? I was shocked. Apparently, my late father had debts, and after paying them off, there was no inheritance left. This was news to me. Even worse, Jackson and his wife have been living in the family home all this time. It was outrageous. It's getting dark soon. If you don't come to pick her up, Mom will be sleeping on the streets. How could you be so cruel? I will never forgive you for this, Jackson. I don't need your forgiveness. Jackson hung up without hearing me out, and subsequent calls went unanswered. When I finally managed to reach my mother, she confirmed that everything Jackson had said was true. Angry at Jackson and worried for my mother, I had no choice but to drive over to where she was. My name is Lily. I'm a 27-year-old woman in a hurry. 3 years ago, I married Mason, who who is the same age as me, and we've been living together since. At the beginning of our marriage, we lived with my parents in a family home. But 2 years ago, Jackson and his wife abruptly moved in. They said our presence was making the place crowded, and we were forced to leave. My older brother Jackson, 8 years my senior, has always been selfish, but his marriage seems to have enhanced that trait. Our family home, where I was born and raised, is a spacious mansion inherited from my grandfather, with extensive land. There should be no discomfort in living together. I was not satisfied with the situation and argued with Jackson, but my husband, who hates conflicts, urged us to leave. Around that time, my father was diagnosed with cirrhosis of the liver, which had already significantly worsened. I wanted to spend his last moments with him, but that didn't happen. The disease rapidly consumed my father, and he passed away a month ago. My heart aches, knowing that my mother must be in much more pain than I was to have my own brother treat us this way amidst all the fresh sorrow. It was pitiful. What would happen next was truly a shock. An hour later, when we arrived at our family home, my mom was sitting desolate on a suitcase in the garden. The front door was locked. Jackson, she said, had taken her keys. Using my set of keys, I unlocked the door and walked in with my mom. Jackson and Olivia were sprawled on the sofa, nonchalantly watching TV. "Is this some kind of joke?" I demanded. "Huh. How did you get in?" Jackson looked up, annoyed. "I used my key to open the front door. Isn't it obvious?" Slipped my mind. "Leave your key, take the old lady, and go." "This isn't funny. How can you be watching TV after kicking your own mother out of the house? Besides, if the house remained even after Dad's debts were paid off, Mom has a right to live here." "Huh? What are you talking about?" Jackson's dismissive attitude infuriated me. I stood in front of the TV. "Mom has a right to inherit this house. If you can't live with her, you should be the one to leave." "Shut up. This house is mine. Dad gave it to me when he was alive. Don't act smart without knowing anything." "What? What do you mean?" My mom also looked puzzled, shaking her head. In the face of our confusion, Jackson smirked and got up from the sofa, bringing out an envelope from a room in the back. "Look at this." "What's this?" I opened the envelope. It contained documents proving the inheritance prepared by a judicial scribe and a real estate ownership certificate. The property had been transferred to his name a month before Dad passed away. Mom and I were shocked as we looked at the documents. "Why would Dad do something like this?" I asked, looking at Dad's picture. "Because I'm his favorite, of course. I told him that Mom would take the house once he passed away, so he gave it to me while he was still alive." "That can't be. I can't believe it." Open your eyes and face reality. No matter how many times we checked the document, the property was in Jackson's name. "All this just for a house," my mom muttered in disbelief. "Is there no other inheritance? Nothing left for Mom?" "Nothing. Be glad that the debts are cleared." "This can't be real. You're not just worrying about Mom. You realize there's no inheritance for you either, right?" Jackson handed over a bank card that contained only a few dollars. I wasn't after Dad's inheritance, but it was a shock to learn that he had left me nothing. "This is too cruel," I said, tears welling up. Olivia laughed her heart out, seeing our dejection. "Now get lost. You poor people have no business here." Jackson and Olivia forcibly drove us out of the house. Ouch, that hurts. My mom had fallen and scraped her palm when they pushed us out. Blood was seeping from the wound. As I wrapped her hand in my handkerchief, tears of frustration welled up and fell. My mother, seeing me like this, gently wiped my tears, her eyes filled with sorrow as well. "Mom, our place is small, but come stay with us." "But I don't want to impose on Mason. I'll find somewhere else to stay." "Don't worry, I just can't leave you like this. I'm going to call Mason right now." "Just wait." Wiping my tears, I grabbed my cell phone and dialed. From the other end of the line, I heard Mason's voice. "Hello." "Mason, I'm sorry for calling out of the blue. My mom has been kicked out of her house." I explained the situation to my surprised husband. He hummed in understanding, though he seemed a bit hesitant. I held my breath, waiting for Mason's response. "Our apartment is pretty cramped compared to Mom's house. It might not be the most comfortable." "Yeah, our place is tiny, but I don't mind. Bring your mom over. We've had times where we were taken care of at home too. In times of trouble, we should help each other out." "Mason, thank you so much. My husband is a kind man with a big heart. He could never leave someone in need. Quickly, we took Mom to our apartment, and from that day on, we lived together. However, living with 3 people in our small apartment was certainly cramped. We didn't have enough savings to buy a house yet, but we considered moving to a slightly larger place. That might be good. I feel bad for your mom in this small space, Mason said as we searched for properties on the computer. My mom's cell phone rang. After a while, she hung up and said something we never could have imagined. Why don't we live in my Highlands condominium? Wait, what? Highlands condominium? Yes. What do you mean? My mother began to explain. To our surprise, apparently my grandfather, who was a wealthy man, was quite a spendthrift and spent all the money he made in a day. To deal with his constant borrowing, my grandmother had no choice but to sell off their farmland to make ends meet. According to my mom, my father was also a big spender, and we didn't have any assets other than the house we lived in. So I was really worried about our future. That's why I invested in real estate with the money I earned when I was working before I got married. My husband and I were absolutely stunned. It turned out that, in addition to the Highlands condominium, my mom was also managing an apartment building and had made a significant amount of money from her real estate investments. I can't even comprehend this. It's too amazing. I'm sorry I didn't tell you. Anyway, I just got a call from the management company that there's a vacancy in the Highlands condominium. We can move in next month. What do you think? There was no reason to refuse such a generous offer. Plus, it was a Highlands condominium with 3 bedrooms, a living room, a dining room, and a kitchen, located just a 5-minute walk from the station, which was much more comfortable than our current situation. Thank you, Mom, but we may only be able to pay as much rent as we are for the apartment. You don't need to worry about that. No way. We have to do this properly, even if we're family. Oh, I need to tell the landlord that we're moving out. Looking at my husband and I'm beaming with joy, my mother's face brightened too. Time flew by as we busied ourselves preparing to move. Before we knew it, we had spent 2 months living in our new home at Highlands condominium. As I was about to head out for some shopping, I was taken aback when the Jackson couple suddenly appeared in front of the condominium entrance. Why are you, a pauper, living in Highlands condominium? Did you get the jackpot or something? Of course not. Highlands condominium has always belonged to my mom. Jackson and Olivia were both taken aback. What? They exclaimed in unison, looking at the towering condominium. I couldn't help but burst into laughter at their confused and goofy expressions. Jackson, his face flushing red, began to seethe with anger. That wretched woman. I can't believe she was hiding this from us while pretending to be poor. My mom never said she was poor. You just assumed it, Jackson. Plus, she inherited a large house. What's wrong with that? That's not the point. Don't yell here. It's disrespectful to the other residents. Besides, how did you know I was here? Jackson said that when he couldn't reach my mother, he tracked her down using her mobile phone's location. Why are you trying to contact Mom now after kicking her out? I bet it's something nasty again. Regardless, if Mom is here, I want to see her. Let me in now. You must be joking. If you hurt Mom again, I couldn't bear it. If you have something to say, you can tell me. But they kept insisting on seeing my mother without revealing why. The Jackson couple seemed rather flustered. Weren't you living comfortably in your huge family house, just the 2 of you? It's none of your business. Fine. If you don't want to tell me, that's okay. I have to go now. Bye. As I tried to walk past the Jackson couple, Jackson suddenly grabbed my arm tightly. Ouch, let me go. Just call Mom. Absolutely not. I'll call the police. Jackson scoffed at me, looking down with disdain. There's no way the police would come for a simple family argument. Even if they did, you couldn't sue me for just grabbing your arm. I sighed. I suppose you're right. It was true. Calling the police over something so minor might not only be futile, but also disruptive to others. I felt bad and ended up not saying anything. Fine, I'll tell my mom, but only if you tell me why you're here. The utility bills for that house are ridiculous. Just for the AC, the electric bill is $500. This is no joke. Their old traditional style house had more than 8 rooms, so it was no surprise that utility costs were high. But even so, a $500 electricity bill seemed a little steep. It was a particularly hot summer, so they probably overused the AC. I thought you would have known that from the start. How would we have known? Mom used to pay the bills. Jackson scratched his head frantically as Olivia fumed. There's no way we would have known. Do you know the property tax for that house is $5,000 a year? What? I can't believe you didn't know. Why would an old house like that cost so much? How are we supposed to pay that? Our house is old and has a large yard, so it's only natural that it would cost a lot to maintain. And apparently, it costs more in taxes to give away property while you're alive than after you pass away. Wait, is that true? Jackson looked puzzled. I see you didn't know. I told him this was all true information I had heard from my mom. The color drained from their faces. Seeing the stunned Jacksons, Olivia burst out in anger, saying, "It's your fault for not doing your homework." And they started fighting right in front of me. After all the trouble we went through to get Dad to change the name on the house, this is too much. That's what you get for doing something so underhanded. But even Dad said clearly that it would be better to give it to me than to your mom. I can't believe it. I was shocked and fell silent, realizing that my father had disregarded my mom and me. Seizing the moment, Jackson made an outrageous request. You can have the house. Let's exchange it for this Highlands condominium. What are you talking about? This isn't mine. It belongs to Mom. Please talk to Mom for me. I beg you. I promise to pass on your message, nothing more. What the hell does that supposed to mean? Feeling ridiculous for even engaging with them, I gave up on shopping and started to head back into the Highlands condominium. But the Jacksons tried to follow me in. Their audacity left me speechless. I'll sue you for trespassing. You just told us that wouldn't be a legal issue. It seems like they won't get the message until they suffer a real consequence. Exasperated, I called out to the management office next to the entrance. Excuse me, could you please call security? Someone who isn't a resident of the Highlands condominium is trying to force their way in. Wait a minute. The security guard, who was on standby 24/7 at the Highlands condominium, came running immediately. With the large security guard in front of them, the two of them were startled. I warned them once again to avoid the same thing happening in the future. I didn't call the police just now because you only grabbed my arm. But if you try to use force or enter the Highlands condominium again, I will really call the police. Okay, we beg you, don't do that. If I even catch a glimpse of you, I'll report it. So go back to your mansion that you got from Dad. Got it? Apparently scared of the police, Jackson and Olivia hastily retreated. I went back to my apartment and told my mother about the exchange with the Jacksons. But why did Dad let Jackson inherit the house? As I was feeling downcast, my mom smiled. Dad must have known what he was doing when he let Jackson inherit. He didn't want to burden me or you, Lily. Even though Dad was indifferent about money, he cared for me a lot. Of course, he always said he loved you, Lily, so much. Really? I was overjoyed to hear that my father felt that way about me. When my mom heard about the inheritance from Jackson, she muttered, "Are you going this far because you realized that he had given a severe punishment to Jackson, who was always self-centered? You knew how Dad felt, Mom." Of course, dear. We've been together for 38 years. I know what he's thinking without him saying a word. Besides, Jackson never took care of Dad when he was sick. I had been under the impression that the Jacksons were looking after my father. However, it turned out they hardly ever visited him, not at home and barely in the hospital. When I visited my dad, he would often tell me, "Jackson comes to see me and you have your job to attend to, Lily. There's no need for you to go out of your way." I took his words to heart, not realizing that it was a gentle lie meant to ease my worries. I had it all wrong about Dad. I feel awful. I want to apologize. Don't fret, Lily. Your feelings are reaching Dad in heaven. The ones who should worry are the Jacksons. Who these days would buy a big high-maintenance house like that? I bet they'll struggle to find a buyer. The truth in my mom's previously gleeful words became evident after a while. The Jacksons, unable to maintain the house on their own, had put it up for sale but couldn't find a buyer. They continued to live in it even a year later. In the midst of all this, Olivia accidentally started a grease fire while cooking chicken, and the house quickly burned down. Since they didn't have money for fire insurance, their life was going to get even tougher. Well, while I understand their predicament, it doesn't concern me. Apparently, the Jacksons are now camping out in the burned-down remains of their house. Living in the Highlands condominium is absolutely fantastic, and I can only feel gratitude toward my mother. I've been paying my mom rent every month, but it seems she's been saving it all to ensure we won't face hardship in the future. Every day is filled with peace and happiness as I live with my incredible mother and kind husband. As I visited my father's grave, I vowed to him that I would continue to repay my mother's kindness. Dahlia, have you ever heard of HSP? I'm one, you know. These words were often repeated by my sister-in-law Brielle, my husband's sister. HSP refers to someone who is highly sensitive to stimuli and easily affected by others' moods. A delicate personality. I, a bearer of such a sensitive soul, was once told, "For the final farewell, it's family only. So could you, a stranger, please leave?" Oh, why don't you guard the parking lot outside? Maybe count the blades of grass during the funeral? On the day of the final goodbye to my father-in-law Ezekiel, I was told this under the cold sky. When my kind husband Axel learned of this, he uttered something astonishing, too late for regrets for those who cause alarm. After all, I had been cared for by these people in the worst way possible. Amidst the tense atmosphere, one of the attendees said, "Aren't you guys going to stop Dahlia outside?" Me? Outside, engaged in a rather surprising activity. I'm Dahlia, a 30-year-old office worker who met Axel through a friend. We dated for 3 years and got married just a year ago. I wish I could say it's been a tranquil married life, but not quite. I've been harboring a certain worry since the beginning of the marriage. We often gather at my in-laws' house for seasonal events. Naturally, there's a lot to do, like serving coffee when guests arrive. Glancing at my mother-in-law, Vivian, she seems busy chatting with relatives. It's not exactly painful, but it's not easy using a kitchen in a stranger's house where I don't usually live. Belle, could you help me out a bit? I'm not quite sure about the kitchen details. I asked Brielle, who had escaped to the kitchen and was sitting on a chair fiddling with her mobile phone. Dahlia, I've said this many times, but I am an HSP, so please don't ask me for favors. It makes me sad and hurts me. Brielle replied before storming off to her room, making a loud noise. Ah, I did it again. My relationship with Brielle was always like this, unable to have a proper conversation without supposedly hurting her with my words. After high school, Brielle couldn't hold down a job for long due to her personality, hopping from one job to another. By the way, she quit another job a few months ago and is currently unemployed. Dahlia, what happened? There was a loud noise. Axel was the first to rush over in such times. I had another issue with Belle. Sorry, I apologized with a wry smile. Brielle's just being selfish. I'm really sorry for making you feel bad. Axel always stood by my side. Then Vivian came from the living room. Dahlia again, you know Brielle is sensitive. I always tell you to be careful. Seriously, for Brielle to get that angry. It must have been something big, right? Don't bully her too much, please. Vivian glared at me angrily. Whenever Vivian's loud voice was heard, Brielle would come out of her room. Mom, it's okay, it's my fault. Dahlia asked me to make coffee and told me to take a lead since I am unemployed. And it just made me feel so frustrated. Dahlia, I'm sorry for making a loud noise earlier, she apologized tearfully. To an outsider, I was the complete villain. I didn't say anything like that, Brielle. Why do you always lie? I just asked you to help me with the kitchen details, I said. I'm sorry for always misunderstanding. I'm HSP, so please don't raise your voice. She pretended to tremble and act scared like a tragic heroine. I hated it because it was so infuriating. The relatives made awkward faces and the atmosphere turned terrible. The one who always managed to change the tense mood was my father-in-law, Ezekiel. Dahlia, you tried to make coffee. Thank you. Come on, Vivian and Brielle apologized to Dahlia. Brielle, you're an adult now, not a child anymore. He firmly reprimanded his daughter. Because of that, the relatives chimed in. That's right, Bri, you're an adult now. Maybe it's time to look for a partner or start job hunting. You can't rely on your parents forever. Learn a bit from your brother Axel. Hearing this, Brielle's face turned red. Visits to the in-laws' house always left me exhausted. Sitting on the sofa at home, I let out a big sigh. Seeing me like that, Axel, as always, said, Dahlia, my family, I'm really sorry. Belle has always been a pain. Can't keep a job. I tell them not to coddle her, but Mom is like that, you know. It's a headache for me too. We don't have to go to my parents' house anymore. But being a newlywed, if I'm the only one not going, Axel might be criticized. Hesitating to accept his suggestion, I thought about it. After all, those gatherings were only once a month, if at all, and I just needed to endure for a few hours. Besides, I thought I understood a bit about this HSP character trait Belle talked about. I have a best friend named Maya. We were high school classmates and moved from Dallas to Boston together. Of course, I asked her to give a speech at my wedding. Maya, too, has a fiancé she's been with for a long time, about to get married. He's serious, responsible, and kind. We're both busy with work and haven't seen each other recently, but she's my precious friend. I didn't know much about HSP until Belle mentioned it, but the more I looked into it, it's just like Maya, I thought. I wasn't sure if I could act as Belle wanted, but I tried to understand her personality. Amid these days, my husband and I were called to the in-laws' house. Ezekiel wasn't there, only Vivian and Brielle. Vivian opened her mouth and blurted out something unbelievable to me. "Dahlia, can you stop it already?" Filled with question marks, I replied, "And what is that?" Vivian, face red with anger, said, "Don't play dumb, Dahlia. You've been sending harassing messages to Brielle almost daily. She's scared, poor thing." "What?" I was baffled, having no clue about such accusations. Then Axel intervened. "So where's the proof? If you're going that far, show us those messages." With Axel's words, Belle shivered a little. I was too scared and deleted them, but I'm not lying. Thinking that there are people like Dahlia in the world makes me too scared to even think about getting a job. I was infuriated by her weak, crying figure. Despite being an adult, Belle had a hard time at work and quit her previous job, right? She started feeling better recently, so I suggested she start looking for a job again. Then she cried and said all that. Yesterday I felt so sorry for her. No way. That's just too far-fetched. And Vivian, believing that they're both ridiculous. Disgusted, I looked at the two of them. "So that's all you called us for? Consider our position, being dragged into such a stupid conversation." "Brielle, what's with you always using HSP as an excuse? You've been to a hospital or something for it, right?" Axel glared at Brielle. "Huh? Of course I'm taking medication, and it's really hard for me. I can't work in this state," Brielle yelled, slamming the table with a loud noise. Vivian echoed her, "Yes, Axel, you're being deceived by Dahlia. Brielle is suffering so much. Why aren't you on her side? You're crazy." Axel looked at them as if they were filth. "What are you talking about? You two are the ones who are crazy." Then Axel retorted, "Brielle, please stop using me as an excuse for not wanting to work. It's extremely unpleasant." Brielle's face turned red. For the next few months, I experienced what seemed like a peaceful married life for the first time. I learned how important it is to distance oneself from the source of the stress. It was a cold, early morning when it happened unexpectedly. At 4:00 a.m., Axel's mobile phone rang. Rubbing his sleepy eyes, he said, "Oh, it's Mom. Obviously, I can ignore it, right?" As Axel was about to go back to sleep, I said, "Calling this early in the morning is a bit strange, don't you think? Maybe something's happened." Reluctantly answering the call, he heard, "Axel, Ezekiel has. It was a heart attack." By the time we rushed to the hospital, Ezekiel was already gone. Vivian, seeing me, said, "Why did you come too?" "Go away," and she threw her bag at me. Belle was also there. "It's all Dahlia's fault, all of it. Non-family members leave." I said to their irrational words, "Enough. Can't you be quiet at a time like this? It's so unfair to Ezekiel. And don't worry, I don't consider you family either." Axel apologized to me, but there was so much to do. Ignoring the unreliable two, we busied ourselves with death notices, funeral, and church arrangements. Ezekiel's sister, auntie-in-law Lucy, who lived far away, said, "He worked so hard. Rest well, Ezekiel." "So what will you do, Axel?" Axel, looking straight ahead, replied, "My mind's been made up for a long time." Lucy simply nodded in understanding. We decided to have a funeral with only close family. On the day of the funeral, I never expected to be treated like that. While I was bustling around, Vivian and Brielle called me over. "What is it?" I asked. They had a request. We asked Axel, but he refused. "Can you ask him for us?" I was shocked when I heard what they wanted. "Now that Ezekiel's gone, you both work, right? Could you help us out financially? Maybe $1,500 a month would be good. We're family after all, right?" They were completely ridiculous. I couldn't help but laugh, holding my stomach. "Family, huh? Please don't make me laugh. Weren't you the ones who said non-family members should leave, always calling us outsiders? And now saying we're family when you're in trouble? Isn't that too self-centered? I refuse, of course. You're both young. Please work. Laughing derisively at me, Brielle used her large frame to forcefully push my shoulder and said, "Fine then, we want a family-only farewell. So could you, an outsider, please leave? Go guard the parking lot outside, and while you're at it, count the blades of grass during the funeral." Pulling my arm and laughing as if it was amusing, she kicked me out of the funeral home without even giving me a coat in the cold season. Brielle, doesn't it hurt your heart to do such a petty thing? Don't you realize that your whims hurt people? My words seemed to have no effect. What? Preaching to me, a younger person? Heart-hurting. I've never felt that. Rather, I get irritated watching people who don't do as I want. Dahlia, your happy work-life boasting is annoying. As she glared at me, I replied, "Well, that's enough. I wish you both the best in difficult times ahead." Smiling kindly, I walked towards the parking lot. I heard their crude laughter behind me, but it didn't bother me anymore. About 20 minutes later, a pale-faced Vivian and Brielle, along with an enraged Axel, showed up in the parking lot where I was. "Dahlia, what are you doing? Are you crazy?" Their faces, losing their minds, were comically absurd, and I couldn't help but laugh. "What am I doing?" "Just doing as I was told, guarding the parking lot and counting grass blades. I'm at 350 now. Behind me, as I'm an outsider, I'm not allowed in the funeral home. I've been told by Vivian and Brielle to guard the parking lot and count the blades of grass," I said, pointing to a cardboard box nearby on which I'd written these words. "Why are you out here in the cold doing this?" a relative asked worriedly. I silently pointed at the cardboard box. "Axel brought me my coat. I couldn't believe you were actually doing this. This is the last time. I'm really sorry for all the trouble I've caused," he said tearfully. "It's okay," I said. Axel always stood by me. When I returned to the funeral home, several relatives rushed over. "Don't worry about this and go to your mother's side with peace of mind." "Why would I?" I looked puzzled, and Axel quickly nodded behind me. I later learned that when Axel noticed I was missing, he asked Vivian and the others, "Where's Dahlia?" They replied with a nasty laugh. Dahlia said she's an outsider and wouldn't attend the funeral, so she went outside. She's guarding the parking lot since she has nothing better to do. She's terrible, right? Maybe you should break up with her. Then you can come back home, Axel, and give Mom some peace. Who'd believe such a lie? Axel, outraged, declared, "Comfort you? Are you kidding me? I've said it before, my family is Dahlia and Dahlia alone. I don't want anything to do with people who only hurt her. I'm cutting ties with you." At the mention of cutting ties, Vivian was agitated. "Cutting ties? Such unfilial behavior. At least support us financially. You expect us to live in that house just the two of us? Show some filial piety." In response to Vivian's furious words, Axel said calmly, "Why do you even think you can continue living in that house? It's too presumptuous. It's embarrassing, right, Lucy?" Lucy nodded to Axel's comment. The in-laws' house was originally built by step-grandparents. When they passed away, the property and the house were inherited by Lucy after a discussion among siblings. "Vivian, you didn't help Dad and Mom when they were in trouble, did you? Instead, you drove them out of their own home." "I've always apologized on behalf of Ezekiel, and I inherited the house. There's no plan for me to return. Brielle, you too, you've always bullied my daughter every time you saw her. She's so afraid of you that she didn't even come today." Lucy glared at the two. "Dad was planning to divorce Mom and leave the house. You didn't know that, did you? He consulted me many times saying he was scared of you too and didn't know what to do. Lucy and I were preparing to sell the house." Axel spoke calmly. "Divorce? Selling the house? Axel, what are you talking about?" The fear of possibly losing their home seemed to instantly drain the color from their faces. "Well, you need to straighten out your childlike behavior, or you're going to face serious consequences soon." Axel's advice was unheeded. "Shut up. I'm not wrong. Selling the house? What are you thinking? That's it. I'll move into your place. Take care of me and Mom," Vivian demanded. Ignoring their childlike comments, Axel said, "You need to leave the house by the end of the month. We've got a potential buyer, and don't think of depending on us. Dahlia's mother has been diagnosed with an illness, and we're moving to Dahlia's hometown. Axel's words were met with loud complaints from the two. Amidst the tense atmosphere, a relative who entered the funeral home said, "Aren't you going to stop Dahlia outside?" What followed was as earlier. Neither of the two, already disliked by the relatives, had anyone on their side and seemed diminished. "Brielle, I've always thought this, but HSP, that's a lie, isn't it?" I asked. Brielle glared at me. "No, I'm taking medication." "Then what's the name of the medication? Which hospital?" I pressed her. "That is," Brielle fell silent. "HSP is an innate personality trait, and there's no medication for it. My best friend is like that. She's been suffering in silence, pushing herself too hard. She's serious and tends to bear it all alone. But you're different. You're not HSP. You're just running away from unpleasant things, ignoring others' feelings, and throwing tantrums like a child whenever something doesn't go your way. What you did to Maya, I will never forgive you for that." Months ago, I met my best friend Maya after a long time. She was even thinner than her already slender frame and told me she was visiting a psychiatrist now. The cause was stress at work. A new employee, upon realizing Maya was younger, behaved overly familiar from the first day, pushing work onto her. "It's faster when someone experienced does it, right?" "Thanks a bunch," the new employee had said. Maya ended up with constant overtime. Eventually, the new employee slammed the desk and announced, "This document is due tomorrow, right? It needs to be submitted today. This and this are incorrect. I'm going home, and I quit today. I can't work in a place where seniors bully newcomers." She left all her work and really went home. Maya, feeling responsible, soon took a leave from the company. Her engagement ended due to misunderstandings with her fiancé. "Was it my fault? I was scared and didn't know what to say," Maya had said. I comforted her as she cried silently. "Just hearing her story made me despise that person. Just hearing about it makes me hate that person. Why not sue? It's unfair that only we suffer. Do you have any evidence?" Maya had recorded their conversations to review them later, suspecting her own communication might have been faulty. I was infuriated by the arrogant attitude, but more than that, I felt dizzy when I found out that the unreasonable person was Bella. Upon learning this, Maya said, "I can't see someone from Dahlia's family." "Don't worry, we're practically strangers now." "I'll fight with you," I said. My cheerful laugh brought a slight smile to Maya's face. "So expect a letter from a lawyer about the compensation claim soon. Make sure you pay up." I smiled kindly, and Brielle's face went pale. The funeral proceeded solemnly, and I was able to say my final goodbye to Ezekiel. Vivian was too distraught to give the eulogy, so Axel did it instead. There were sniffles around the room as he spoke of his father. We moved to Dallas, and Mom's health is improving. Vivian and Brielle, kicked out of their house, managed to rent a cheap apartment with little cash left, and now the compensation to Maya. Their life is tough. Vivian started a part-time job. "Brielle, you quit your job again. Be responsible." "Shut up. I'm not wrong." Parents should support their child once close. They now constantly argue, and it seems they might be evicted from the apartment. I have issued a restraining order against them and instructed Mom to call the police without hesitation if they show up at our place. Maya quit her job and returned to Dallas with us. She's still recovering but gradually gaining weight, and her smile is coming back. Nothing makes me happier. Someday when I have children, I want to teach them the importance of empathy and that there's no need to endure and be friends with someone they can't understand.